All right. That was cool. Thank you so much for joining, Marcus, and thanks for releasing this new album. It's super interesting and very unexpected, so I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Yeah, very good to talk to you again, my friend.
Thank you. So we have a bunch of friends here in the chat today joining us on the live stream. We've got Chris Harris, Marcelo Seabra, Al Ellis, Christopher Clement, Murray Weissmer, and of course our fantastic moderator Sharon Baker, and probably some other people hiding in the background. So if you're on the live stream, thanks so much. Please ask questions in the chat. We'd be happy to answer them and get them to Marcus. Cool. So Marcus, tell us a little about what we just heard. This very unusual project coming from what one might expect from Markus Reuter.
It's kind of like for me, like one of the ultimate Markus Reuter projects because I'm hardly playing anything on this record, except for the last track, which is all me. But here I kind of zoom out of the position of musician into producer, and I play, you could say, if that makes sense, I play the musicians, uh, as instruments. And it was a wonderful experience. My friend Matthias, who doesn't want to be in public, he is the person who financed this project, and he asked me a couple of years ago. He had this idea to make a project for, uh, for like a group of people that is working on. I don't know if that's the right word, like reforesting the Mata Atlantica rainforest in Brazil. And so he had this idea to kind of like, yeah, do something with Brazilian rhythms and stuff. And so like we were talking for a few months, and then at some point I said, okay, you choose some rhythms that you like, and then we pass it on to my friend Tobias Reber in Switzerland, who was like a generative music electronics kind of wizard. And he took those samples of rhythms and turned them into rhythms, which were unlike the rhythms, which were like very different from the rhythms that they were sourced from. And that was like kind of like the foundation for this project. So it was basically a collage when I invited friends. I think like Tobias was first, then I worked on Tobias recordings, I structured them, and then I invited Raphael Preuschl, the bass player, and Gary Husband to overdub stuff first. And from there, I then kind of like recomposed everything. And so this project grew over, I can't remember exactly, it was maybe 8 months or so. And it's it's come out as something that I think is kind of like an ultimate artistic expression somehow. There's nothing is quantized here. Everything is as it was played. Um, Edits are just minor because like what I try to do here is like my usual strategy of not taking away but adding, right? So if something wasn't working, I composed a part, like a MIDI part, that went underneath what was not working to make it work. And it's yeah, I'm very happy with how this came out.
When I first asked you about it, I think in a text message, you said it's a very special project. Now, you and I have spent a lot of hours together in person and online. And I never heard you talk about the rainforest. I'm not saying you don't care or something like that. It just surprised me to see an album come out with an ecological focus. And frankly, I'd never even heard the term Mata Atlantica. So I was caught off guard, like, oh, what is this? Reading the press release was really interesting. And then seeing this lineup, huge lineup of musicians. This is not a 5-musician project. This is, I don't know how many, you can tell us. But can you tell us about the rainforest? What makes this project special to you? Where did this come from? Are the funds going anywhere special? Give us sort of an overview of this.
Yeah, the funds are going to something called AMAP, MAAP. There's, I think we can post the link, sure. And it's you know, the interesting thing is like I'm sort of this is really kind of like maybe the very first time I'm actually saying something like this. I'm as an artist, I'm always political, but I never talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that explains what you say, that you're kind of surprised and you didn't expect anything like that. But my expression is music, and so Matthias's wish for me to do something based on that idea, like, you know, was like for me reason enough. Like I sort of like I connected with him to fulfill his wish. So I don't even need to be political in the sense that I need to have an opinion or anything. Like I can execute what his creative impulse, let's say, right? And that's sort of like what how I consider my own work as being political in inverted commas, right? And that's exactly what happened here. And really, I mean, like, you know, the questions, like you were talking about, like you know, preserving the rainforest, but we do make a CD, right? Does that actually make sense? No, it doesn't, right?
Right.
So, but then also, does that also mean that we shouldn't be creating, you know, and on which level should we create in order to bring good into the world that maybe inspires others to do good? So, and that's why that's always like a fine line. And in the end, it turned, you know, like we did actually make CDs and they're on sale, right? So, but it's really a difficult topic. You know, what makes this special is really that even though I'm sort of like, let's just call it the composer and recomposer of the musical contributions that the musicians made, but it's a collaborative effort. And I believe that this music could have been sort of like composed live in the studio if musicians were actually playing together. So because all that listening, right, that wasn't happening because we were remote. You know, this is a COVID project, right? So, and so I think all this listening sort of like it was my task to put things together in such a way that that you get the impression that everyone is listening to everybody else.
Yeah.
So
Can you tell us about like how you got all of these parts and how they got connected? Like I said, the lineup is rather significant on this album. Were people just contributing parts based on sort of a high level compositional direction? Or were you, as a producer, sort of doing a lot more of that composition and orchestration behind the scenes?
yeah, so first of all, I didn't tell the musicians much about what to do. I wanted them to be free and freely respond to the material that I sent to them. So, like I said before, it was Raphael Preuschl and Gary Husband who received the first demos, which were basically just Tobias's electronic percussion tracks, plus some chord sequences that I had written on top of that. And they simply responded. And then Matthias, he had like the idea, he actually invited a couple of German singers, female singers, here, like that I wasn't aware of before. And actually, like I wanted to ask you, do you remember that there, like a few years ago, there was like a ukulele cover of Three of a Perfect Pair out there? I don't know
Yeah.
if you ever seen that.
Yeah, it's
And that's
great.
the singer you just heard here on the first track. That's her.
Ah, okay. That's cool.
Which is an interesting connection, right? So it was Matthias and I, we got together and we kind of like, you know, we collected names, and I was thinking, you know, with a project like this, the social aspect is so important. So you need to know that you can count on the musicians. You know that they will be happy, you know, with the money they get paid, right? And and you need, it's something that needs to be clean, needs to be a really clean process. There can't be anything dirty in it or it won't work in terms of communication, interaction. And it's a very clean, it's like a very clean project, very clean way of communicating that made this possible. And yeah, we put together a list of musicians we wanted to have, and it turns out that, you know, we want, on original list had maybe 35 people on. And but then it turned out that the core band was the same throughout, like Andi Pupato and Raphael Preuschl and Tobias Reber and Gary and me, and then everybody else kind of like floating on top of that.
I like that the ethic of cleanliness and preservation and goodwill and those things are part of the entirety, you know, the process and the product. So that's great.
Yes.
So let's take a listen to another track. Do you have a recommendation or something that that might be most interesting to respond to after?
Maybe track 5.
Okay. I'll get that started. I'd love to keep it going, but it's over 10 minutes long, and that's a really great track. Some comments from the listeners. The bass on this is gorgeous. Lord Byron by Pat Mastelotto. Bring it on. Oh, wow, the textures in this. So, and Luca on trumpet. Sounds like there's some excitement about that. So, really great track, great groove. That's actually my favorite thing about this album. You can just put it on and just bob your head, and it's so rhythmic and enjoyable. Great textures, too.
Exactly. You know, it's sort of like an album you could just put on in the background, like even in a, say, in a cafe, like a kind of like a boutique cafe where coffee house where people can just, you know, not even take note of it, but they will bob their heads, you know. But everything about the rhythms on this album is kind of like they're weird. That's why we're here, right? You know, track in 11, track in 7, lots of dissonances, like unquantized generative electronic stuff that does not fit on any grid, neither you know, frequency wise and or rhythmically and stuff like that. So it's also something like where you can, it's almost like a movie. You can have, you know, close your eyes, listen on headphones, and really find lots and lots of details. You know, something I forgot to mention earlier is that in addition to the tracks that Tobias produced initially, there's also a field recording from the Mata Atlantica rainforest in each of the pieces, right? So there's always like this ambience in the background, sometimes in the foreground, and the music is played, you know, composed to sit right within those sounds.
Well, it's really wonderful to listen to, and it sounds great too. It doesn't. One thing I love about your projects, in particular, like your project with Aralee Dorough, when we did an interview with her, and I love that album, Voyage of Blackwood. You do these projects remotely with people who are not in the same room. And sure, there's the effort to make it sound like one integrated thing. To me, that's like level 1 of acceptable remote music. You know, when the mix comes together and it's like, okay, yeah, it sounds good. But level 2 is like, it sounds like they were together. It sounds like they were doing the same thing. And you have this this way of bringing that out in people, I think, as a producer. Do you have any sense of what that is? Or is it because you are just telling people to respond and you're not telling them what to do? Like, do you have any sense of that?
Well, I guess it's obviously about attitude on my end, right? And as I said, it's about the whole the totality of the communication process. It's about everything. It's about the respect for what the people bring to the table. So that's why I was saying, like, I wouldn't take stuff away. Like I'm being non-judgmental, you could say. And in a way, if you think about it, that's what gives the feeling, like if you're improvising in a room with people, like for real in a room, there's even no way to be judgmental. I mean, you can be judgmental and maybe ruin the thing for yourself, right? But things happen and they are there and you accept them. You not only do you respect them, you accept them even before they happen. And that's sort of why I think this album sounds so you know, like unified, you could say, because like there is no questioning and no hard feelings about anybody's contributions, and I think that's the secret, really. And it's not something that's easy to do. I mean, I turned 50 recently, and like it took me 50 years to become. I mean, I always was pretty non-judgmental, I'd say, but I've gotten much better in recent years. So.
That's fantastic. So we have just a few minutes left. I want to remind people we love shining the light on incredible musicians at Make Weird Music. And this is one of many projects we've featured with Markus, because he's an exceptional musician and exceptional thinker, an artist, producer, many things. So down here, markusreuter7d.bandcamp.com, that's where you can buy this album. markusreuter.com has, it's in the lower left corner of the screen. There's links to working with Markus. You can have, I think he called them catalytic conversations. Is that right? Or catalyzing conversations?
Catalytic, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to endorse that. If you are looking for music lessons, Markus is great for that. But if you're just looking for a way to push yourself over a line or over the edge in a positive way, in a way that feels scary or intimidating, Markus will give you the sort of encouragement you need to get there. And I want to encourage people to reach out to him. He does have a psychology degree, and he's just a great thinker. So this approach he's bringing to musical production that he's talking about, he brings it to his daily life as well. I know Markus didn't expect me to talk about this stuff, but honestly, he's had a huge impact on my life. So I want to encourage you to go to markusreuter.com, check out all of the things he does, including the catalytic conversations. And of course, check out this project on Bandcamp. Is it available now or is it coming out soon?
You can pre-order it and you basically get all the tracks right away, but the official release date is on November 18th. And we're trying to push this project a little bit because it costs quite a bit of money to make this record. And so like Matthias in the end thought like, do we just let it, get, not get noticed or whatever. So at least we're trying to get some people to hear it. It's been frustrating recently. Like many people have talked about how much music there is, and they get like hundreds of emails about new releases every day, which is true. And for me as a creator, as somebody who's making music, I can tell you it's even more frustrating for those who get the announcements of new music.
Do you mean it's frustrating that so many people are making, or it's frustrating competing with all of the, I don't want to say noise, but...
You're right. I mean, I don't, like I said, like I'm not judgmental. That also means I'm not feeling competitive at all, right? Also, like, because I think like what I do is what it is and it's great and there's no need, there's no need to compare to anything. But yes, competing about getting people to spend some time with it, and that's the major problem. And it's been frustrating for me personally, not necessarily about this project, but generally, that this year I have been making what I think is the best music I've ever made, and it's like I think close to 50 releases this year, which is insane, but I'm super inspired this year to create. And yeah, and only like a handful of people hear this music, and that's frustrating. It really is. But it doesn't stop me from making music.
Oh, nor should it. But I think that's a good encouragement for people to click the like button and click the share button. It's nothing about
making the album.
Yeah, and get the album. Click the link in the video description that takes you to the Bandcamp page. There's it's relatively inexpensive to buy this stuff or even just to support it, and it's super important. That's all I have to say. So Markus, thank you so much for joining. We'll close with the track that where it's just you performing, the last track on the album. Any comments for people who are about to hear this?
Yeah, this is a wonderful thing. This is a soundscape piece that I recorded with the help of my friend Eric Emil Eskilsson in 2012, I think, or like a long time ago. And and I knew it was a great piece. And so sometimes, like I have these pieces in the back of my head somewhere, and then I realize this is where it belongs to. This is it. This is where it belongs. And this is what happened here with this very piece.
Do you think of it as this piece has a home in the Mauthe Atlantica, or do you think this piece has a home with this collection of music?
Both. It's both, you know. Like if you listen closely, because here again, like the field recording is very present, and there are some gongs played by Andi Pupato that are also on this track, and it really is it's sort of like the perfect representation of how should I say this, of creation, like how human creation, as in creativity, as in non-destruction, let's call it that way, construct constructiveness, or whatever that word really is, constructivity, right? That's kind of what this piece is for me. It kind of demonstrates, okay, there's something artificial in a way, because what we human beings bring to this planet is sort of like, as we know, like we're going to the artificial intelligence, right? So what we're bringing to the table seems artificial to us, but it's actually natural and nature, because we are nature. We sometimes forget that we are nature. And that's why this piece is, as the closing piece for the record and for the project overall, for the meaning of it, is kind of is perfect to me.
Excellent. Thank you for that description. Right before we listen, I just want to remind people you can click the join button, support Make Word Music. It's right below the video player on YouTube. And then secondly, we will be live streaming another interview this afternoon with guitarist and composer and educator Stephen Mackey, who is a music professor at Princeton. Really great guy, great musician. So I'm looking forward to having him. So if you're free, come join us in a couple of hours. And then until then, enjoy this closing piece on Mauthe Atlantica. It's called O Fim do Mundo, and it's just Markus Reuter. Is it improvisation, the whole thing?
It is.
Okay.
At the end of the world.
Ah,
That's the name.
of course. All right, cool. Thank you. Thanks, Markus.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yep.